So unfortunately, Andrew was supposed to be here to give his talk, but he was unable to make it to the workshop. So instead, being the co-author on the paper, I'll present Sprites. So that's awesome. So my name's Patrick McCorry. I've been talking to you guys for the past 2 days. A little bit about myself. I work at UCL, and I'm going to be joining King's College London in the fall, and I'll be starting my own research team, so that's really exciting. I need to get my clicker. So anyway, obviously Sprites and state channels. Can we make payment networks go faster than Lightning? So what I've realized over the past week, I need to start my timer actually, because I'm recording my own time, being the moderator, dual role. Okay, so what I've noticed over the past week of talking to the Perun guys and L4 guys and everyone else in the Bitcoin world is that we all have a different definition of a channel. So I'm going to give you my definition. My definition of a channel is the following. We have a group of parties, and they're all running an application with each other. For example, it could be a poker game. There's 4 parties, and every time we do some action in the poker game, everybody agrees to the state update. So for example, Alice is going to play her hand, and everyone agrees that she has indeed played her hand, and that she's beat Bob. Okay? And the whole point here is that if one person does not cooperate, let's say Bob doesn't cooperate, Alice has played her hand, he's about to lose his money. Why would he ever authorize that state update? Well, if he doesn't, then Alice can go to the blockchain with the latest state, she's about to play her hand, with a command of her playing her hand, and the blockchain will self-enforce a state transition. So actually, the blockchain is this root of trust that guarantees safety, as in everyone gets the coins they deserve, and for state channels, it will also guarantee liveness, that the game will always finish, that will always finish the poker game. So that's really important. Okay, now what I want to talk about is the following. What is the single functionality that every single channel supports? We have Spielman channels, what Christian Decker mentioned in his talk, duplex micropayment channels, which is also Decker's. We have Lightning channels, write-in channels. I'm going to talk about Sprites channels in this talk. We have Perun channels, counterfactual. And actually, what they all support are conditional transfers. We've learned so much about conditional transfers over the past 2 days. But of course, I'm going to go over them again. So what is a conditional transfer? Okay, we have Alice and Bob. And the idea is the following. Alice says, Bob, if you can reveal the secret of this hash, the preimage, if you can reveal the preimage of H before time t, you can get the coins, Bob. So there's an expiry time associated with a conditional transfer. Bob reveals the preimage R. And then both parties, in the ideal case, they'll update their channel, they'll finalize the payment, and Bob will get the coin from Alice. But actually, this little doll, sorry, she has the secret already. Why would she ever cooperate? Why would she update this channel with Bob? In the worst case, Alice doesn't cooperate. So what Bob does is the following. Bob gets his conditional transfer, he gets the secret, and he gives it to the blockchain. And then the blockchain will evaluate that. It will say, Alice promised Bob 1 coin if he revealed the secret. Bob has told me the secret because I'm the blockchain, so actually I'll make sure he always gets paid. And that's the essence behind a conditional transfer. Now what's really cool is that given this conditional transfer, and this was sort of the innovation of the Lightning Network, is that we can now synchronize a root of channels based on this single payment, or this single condition. So let's say Alice wants to pay Dave, but they don't share a channel. So Alice could pay Bob, Bob could pay Charlie, and Charlie could pay Dave. Awesome. So then what we do is the following. Dave and Alice, they have a secure communication channel. Dave sends over the H, which is the hash of a secret, alongside some payment information, how much he wants to be paid. Now what Alice does is he sets up a conditional transfer with Bob. So he says, Bob, if you can reveal this preimage before time t plus 2, you get the coins. And Bob does the same to Charlie. He says, Charlie, if you can reveal this secret before time t plus 1, you can get the coins. And of course, Charlie's going to do this to Dave and say, Dave, if you can reveal this preimage before time t, you get the coins. And of course, in the ideal case, Dave reveals it, it jumps along the route, and every single channel will update their state and finalize the payment. But what about the worst case? What is the implication if Dave doesn't reveal this preimage right away? There's actually this money times time trade-off, Alice's coins, Bob's coins, and Charlie's coins, they're all locked up for a time period. So in this case, Alice says, when do I get my coins back if this payment doesn't work? And in the worst case, oh, and by the way, Dave's actually part of Korea. I don't know if you watched the World Cup this week. They griefed Germany and they got kicked out of the World Cup. So sorry about that, guys. Maybe you're still sore about it. Maybe it's too early for a joke. Anyway, so basically, what is the worst case scenario here? The worst case is that Dave, he doesn't reveal this pre-image until the very last moment. And what you actually realize is that for every hop along the route, this time delay increases. Charlie has to wait time t, Bob will wait time t plus 1, and 1 could be some constant, and Alice will do the same. And the question is, why does this increase for every hop along the route? The reason is the following. You can imagine Bob, okay? So Charlie will get this pre-image, and Charlie will get the coins from Bob. Now, Bob needs to guarantee that if Alice doesn't cooperate, he can always go to the blockchain, and he can always get his coins from Alice. So he needs this safe grace period to make sure he always gets paid if he pays Charlie. And the reason for this is that every single dispute in every single channel is a local event. If Alice and Bob dispute, that has no implication on any other channels. So this isn't a great scenario, is it? The griefer can hold up coins for a very long period of time, and actually the longer the route, the bigger delay there is, and the more cost there is money-size-time trade-off. So can we do a little bit better? And this has already been alluded to in some talks. So this is the main one contribution to Sprites. And this is in the Ethereum world. So in the Ethereum world, we can have this pre-image manager. Okay, talks to everyone. He says, guys, what I'm going to do is the following. If you give me a pre-image, use this function, submit pre-image. What I'll do is that I'll store the pre-image, I'll store its hash, and a timestamp of when I received this. And then anybody can ask me when I heard about the pre-image. So we can do was pre-image revealed by this time? And the pre-image manager will say yes or no. It's a very simple concept. And now what we can do is set up a new conditional transfer. So what we do now is Alice says to Bob, Bob, if you can prove to me that this pre-image was revealed to the pre-image manager before time t, you can get the coins, Bob. It's a very slight adjustment to the condition, but it is a condition. Now what we can do is the following. Alice sets up this conditional transfer to Bob, Bob does the same to Charlie, and Charlie does the same to Dave. And the implication of this is that everyone can have a constant lock time. And why can they have this? The point is that if, let's just say, Dave is griefing, and he won't give the coins to Charlie until the very last moment. What Charlie does is he reveals the pre-image on the blockchain. That guarantees that he gets the coins between these two parties. And once there's a dispute in one channel, it atomically makes all the other conditions true. So anytime they go to a dispute, it will always be true, because the pre-image manager always heard about this pre-image before time t. So that's really cool. So the real question is, does this have an impact? Is this important? Why does it matter if it's constant time? Now, I got these slides from Andrew. They're everywhere. But anyway, the whole takeaway is the following. Let's just say you have a scale-free network. And actually what we're witnessing is that the Lightning Network is taking this form. People are setting up lots of routes or lots of channels with other people, and it's somewhat distributed, decentralized. In this case, it actually increases the throughput of the network. So for example, I think in the simulation experiment was the following. Let's just say there's 50% of nodes on the network are griefing. Every time we set up a payment, 50% of the time, I have to wait the worst case. So it's like a really bad scenario. In Lightning, if I try to set up a route inside this simulation or this situation, 20% of the time, I will find a route that has capacity. Because remember, most of the coins are locked up now. They're being griefed. In Sprites, this is around 60%. So there actually was a significant improvement using this technique. It's a very short section in the paper, so I highly recommend people go and have a look at it. And there's another graph, just to highlight the two differences. But the whole point there is I want to say there was a simulation, and it actually says, actually, this is quite useful for the network. But there is a good, a bad, and an ugly with this technique. The good part is constant time routing. Regardless of the size of the route, everyone wastes the same amount of time. It's also very conceptually simple. It's a simple smart contract that can be deployed on the network. So it's really easy to deploy. And what I've also noticed is that, as far as I'm aware, and these guys can confirm it later, I believe this conditional transfer on a contract is sort of what Perun and L4 are doing. Do I get a nod for that? Sort of. Okay, we can talk about it afterwards. I think they're doing a similar conditional transfer, which is awesome. It's much more expressive condition than what we're doing. And the problem, though, is there's still no privacy. I mean, if everyone does this dispute on the blockchain, we can see that this root did exist. Every single channel has the same dispute. They're all talking to the same preimage manager, and they all care about the same preimage. And also, I do not believe it's currently compatible with Pedro's protocol that he presented yesterday. Hopefully someday it could be, but I think right now it's definitely not compatible. So that's the ugly part. Anyway, faster routing is great. But is that it? I mean, this paper's 20 pages long. Is that literally what we did in 20 pages? It's not. So when most people think of Sprites, they think of this preimage manager. But they never think about a state channel construction. So actually in Sprites, there's a whole payment channel, whereas I'll not go to the payment channel today, but I'll talk about is the generic state channel construction. How can we set up a protocol between end parties and actually play poker together? So we have another smart contract called the state channel contract. And this is stored on the blockchain. And Andrew gave me these slides. I'll skip through them because that's animation. I'm surprised animation works. Man. Slow animation. Okay, anyway, so when you think of a state channel, in the real world, everyone has a copy of the local state. And the way he thought about it in the paper was that we can have this ideal functionality where there's a single state that is shared by everyone, and everyone has a consistent view of the state. So that's a really cool little picture there. Now, I'm going to go into my slides, if I can get rid of those animation. Awesome. So how does this work? So what you've noticed is that in every state channel construction, there's some means to say, this is the latest state, and now this state has been revoked and should never be broadcast to the network. In the Ethereum world, we can use replaced by monotonic counter, or as the Perun guys call it, replaced by version. This is what I mean by definitions. We all have different words for these things. But anyway, it's fairly straightforward. The first state has a deposit from every party. Alice has 1 coin, Bob has 1 coin, and Charlie has 1 coin. And the initial counter is 0. Now, to do a state update, you can imagine that Alice wants to send 0.1 coins to Bob. Okay? What she does is that she creates this new state, she increments the counter, and she gives the state to everyone else. And she signs it, of course. Then let's pretend there's a fair way to exchange these signatures for now. What you imagine is that everyone signs this new state, it has an incremental counter 1, and now this is the latest state. So if both of these states are given to the blockchain will say, well, this has the largest counter, so this must be the latest state. And that's essentially the idea. Every time we create a new state, we simply increment the counter. Very straightforward. And then the idea is that I can broadcast this latest state to the network, and the network will say, yep, that is indeed the latest state. Now, how do we get this fair exchange of signatures? I mean, Alice is going to be Bob at, poker. How can we guarantee that Bob will actually sign that state update? And how can we self-enforce a state transition on the blockchain? So in our state channel construction, we do the following. So Alice, she selects a command. So we have this concept of commands now. And she says, I want to play my hand. Then what she does is the following. She gets the current state of the game, where she's ready to play her hand. She gets the command, and she computes the transition. And then she gets this new state, where she's played her hand, and she's beat Bob, and she wins the game and gets the coins. Then what she does is she signs the state, and she signs the command. And she gives this to Bob and Charlie. So now both parties will have 2 signatures from Alice for both messages. And they do the following. How do they verify this state update? What they do is that they check the signatures first, make sure the signatures are okay and Alice has indeed signed this. Afterwards, they check the counter. Is this the largest counter we've received so far? And then they compute the new state transition themselves. They get their local copy of the state. They get our command, they compute the state transition, and they'll get to the point where, Alice has indeed beat Bob at the game. And what they do is that they check the state they computed. Is this the same one given to them by Alice? Yes, it is. So they're happy, so then they sign the states, and they give it off to Alice and Bob. They pass it on to everyone else. So at the end of this game, everyone should have a signature from everyone else, and they should have the latest state. Now let's just say Bob doesn't cooperate, and he refuses to sign this new state update. What happens then? Well, Alice has a local timeout. She waits 2 minutes, Bob doesn't sign it, so then she has to raise a dispute with the blockchain. What she does is that she broadcasts the state update to the blockchain. She says, blockchain, this is the latest state of our game, and now I want to trigger a dispute. She triggers a dispute, and now there's a fixed time period for every single party to insert a command. So we call this the input command. Every single party can play a command, so Alice can then send, I want to play my hand, and I want to, run this command. And Bob and Charlie could do the same if they have valid commands for this state transition. Afterwards, one party, I guess in this case would be Alice, so will notify the contract to say, please resolve the dispute. So what the contract will do and the application will do is, it'll get the 3 commands, it'll execute it through the state transition, and at the very end, it'll say this is the latest state with an incremented counter. So what's really cool here is that the state channel never closes. I mean, that's the whole point of Sprites here, is that there's no concept of a close. What the dispute process does is guarantee the state transition. I mean, it does have disadvantages, but overall, we don't actually ever close the channel. So that's quite nice. Now, one problem is what we call an execution fork. Okay? So let's go back to payments, because this is much easier to think about for payments, okay? Let's just say Alice has given Bob 1,000 coins in a payment channel. Now, Bob's really excited, now he's like a millionaire. So he goes offline and he goes to try to buy a Lambo. And he tells the Lambo dealer, I've got these 1,000 coins from Alice. You can see this off-chain payment I got. Okay, now what happens while he's talking to the dealer is that Alice says, well, I don't really want to give him 1,000 coins. So Alice broadcasts an older state where she has the 1,000 coins. And she gives that to the blockchain. And then she issues the withdraw command. And then after the dispute process, the withdrawal is successful, and she gets her coins out of the channel. Bob returns. He looks at this, dispute in the blockchain, and he's like, oh no, I've lost my 1,000 coins, but I've already agreed to the Lambo. So now he's bankrupt. I mean, I guess he has a Lambo, so he's happy. He can at least drive it for a few days before he goes to the jail. But anyway, so yeah, that's a problem. So this is sort of like the always online assumption. I mean, in reality, you only have to be online periodically. You have to come on at some point in time to see, is there a dispute? So in our case, what if Alice is Malice, and now she's trying to perform this attack, and she's trying to fork the execution? How do we deal with that? So imagine Alice, she sends the latest state, she triggers the dispute, and then she sends her command to the blockchain. Then Bob wakes up, and he's like, oh no, don't steal my 1,000 coins. So what Bob does is that he broadcasts the latest state with the largest counter, where he did indeed receive the 1,000 coins. And then the contract will say, well, actually, this is the latest state. So I don't have to do a state transition on chain. If I don't have to do a state transition on chain, let's just cancel all the commands and cancel the dispute process. So for us, that is the idea of an execution fork and how Bob can defend against it. But really, it's not great that Bob has to be online all the time. And this sort of came up yesterday during the panel session as well. So in the next talk, Syria Bakshi is going to talk about PISA. And this is sort of what we've been working on for 6 months. And the idea is fairly straightforward. And actually, we got the idea from Lift Terrace when I visited DevCon last year. And I'm having this, I think, was like some pina colada or something in Cancun. And he was telling me, oh, there you are, Lift Terrace. Sorry, I thought you were over there. We were talking about the monitor problem. So I went away. I went back to England. Me and Syria started talking about this over Slack. We solved one piece of the puzzle. And then it slowly evolved to a somewhat nice solution. So you'll find out more about that from Syria later. But the idea is pretty straightforward. I can hire this third party. I can give him the state in a way where he doesn't know what the state is. He just gets his hash. And then I can go offline. And I also get the signed receipt from the PISA tower in a sense that I have evidence that I've hired this dude. I go offline. And then let's pretend, this PISA tower colludes with Alice, and Bob still loses 1,000 coins. Bob could come online. He has evidence of the dispute. He has evidence that he hired this dude, and then he can punish the tower for cheating. But you'll find out about that later on. So that's awesome. So now I want to give a summary of Sprites overall. So it's faster and lightning in the sense that it reduces the worst case scenario, because it turns all these local events into this global event. We have a simulation that demonstrates there is actually a significant improvement for this, and it's a really cool simulation, so I highly recommend checking it out. We have this new state channel construction where we issue commands and we do the state transition. And what's really nice is that we did this back in early 2017 as well. So this has been around for a while. But what I haven't explained today is the payment channel construction. I mean, how can you support asynchronous deposits? So we have this channel, I deposit on chain. How can we have this reflected in an asynchronous manner off chain? That's really cool. And there's also this whole formal framework to say this is somewhat secure. It isn't broken, or at least we can evaluate it somehow. So thank you very much for listening. That's the end of this talk. And I think I'm in time. Yeah, actually, that was only 20 minutes. We're back on schedule. Awesome. Cool. Is there any questions? I don't know if I have to run around. Okay, so I just give you the mic and then I come back up. There you go.
So when you say it's faster than Lightning, from my understanding at least, it means that Dave should submit on-chain the secret. So basically, it's not the channel.
Oh, no, not Dave. So, I mean, you can imagine what Dave does is he waits to the last minute, to the point where he can guarantee get the coins and just give it to Charlie. I mean, that could actually go down the whole route until someone says, actually, it's starting to get dangerous time-wise. Let's broadcast this to the blockchain. So any party can broadcast it when they get it. But the whole point there is that it's faster in the sense that if the worst case scenario happens, let's just say the entire route is Malice. We have a sender, Alice, he locks up one coin. Then let's say Bob, Charlie, and Dave are all Malice. This time delay increases from the sender to the receiver. So in Sprites, it's constant. So Alice is never worse off regardless of the size of the route. In Lightning, if there's a route of 10 hops, Alice is much worse off than everyone else along the route. So that's why it's faster than Lightning, if that helps. Sorry. Awesome. That saved me effort. Yep.
Thanks for the talk. Did I get that right, that this is just for Ethereum? It doesn't work in Bitcoin? Or do you have any constructions that work in Bitcoin as well?
So the problem of doing this on Bitcoin is, so there's two elements, I guess. So for the preimage manager, you need this global registry that can store hashes and preimages. So that's not yet supportable in Bitcoin. I mean, it could be put in there. I don't see any reason why they couldn't do some fork they added in. I mean, soft forks do everything, apparently, so you could probably soft fork this in somehow. The state channel construction, actually what's really cool is that when you look at the new Lightning proposal by Roseby for a sort of like, he now wants to have a scheme where you increment a counter for every update. That's essentially what we're doing in Ethereum, replaced by a monotonic counter. So as far as I'm aware, there's some motivation, and maybe Christian can back this up as well, to get replaced by counter into Bitcoin at some point. And then parts of PISA is also compatible with Bitcoin, but Siri will talk about that. Okay, is there any other questions? Yep. Awesome. It's like a little triangle.
Hi. Okay. So basically, I saw that you have the signature people in the channel related to the signs, and that's reduced the problem of the validators or a similar problem where everyone have to sign to approve the latest state, right? And and you have n square, O n square complexity.
Oh,
yeah, and
I mean, because if you think about it, all the contract has to store the state once. It gets a signature, and it just checks the signature on its current state that it's aware about.
Yeah, what if we reduce instead of all the people sign, but we have only m of n people signing? That's still valid, or is that
m of n? So actually, that's where I get definitions and people get angry. So it's sort of like, what is the state channel? I mean, what is the trust assumptions? Is it trustless? Is it n out of n? Yeah, that's what people do to find it. We should not have to trust anyone. If there's a full collusion of everyone else, we're still safe. The minute we get to the m out of n, i.e., I say k out of n. Let's say there's a channel of 10 people. You only need six signatures, honest majority. Is this still a state channel? People will say no. I mean, actually, what's really cool about state channels is that all it is a local consensus protocol. We run this local consensus protocol, we agree state updates, then we broadcast some state to the blockchain. I think that's what you were alluding to.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Okay, thank you.
Awesome. Is there any other? Awesome, I think that's all the questions then. Thank you.